Hey, it's Melissa from Kiwi Banana, and today I am recording a video outside while there's a wee thunderstorm happening. I hope you can still hear me. Got my mic on, so hopefully that helps. And so yeah, basically today's video is going to be about things that you may want to know about Dominican Republic. So this is not going to be like an in-depth thing. There's some things that I've observed, some things that I've been told, and some, sort of statistics, I guess. Just whatever, really. But anyway, so one of the first things I want to say is that it is a Spanish-speaking country. So you may want to learn Spanish before you come here. Even if you're just coming to visit, it will make your stay here a lot easier. You don't exactly have to be fluent, but it does help. And probably one of the next popular languages that is, not like a native language here would be French. And then I guess, if you speak English, it's, you can get by to a certain extent, but speaking Spanish is probably the best thing, or at least learning some simple things of Spanish before you come here. And I guess if you don't speak Spanish, just make sure you have patience. Maybe if you've got some technology or a book or something that you can show them to try and communicate will help. Another thing, it's not as cheap as I thought it was going to be. I guess it's just my own, assumptions. I guess it's because everyone's always trying to get as much money out of you as they possibly can. Especially the locals. And then if they're not from here, then they probably have a certain expectation of what income they should be earning, compared to possibly what they were earning in the country they were born in. So yeah, it's not quite as cheap as, say, somewhere, if I was to compare something like Southeast Asia, some of those countries there are much cheaper. So yeah, so we were coming here thinking it was going to be a lot cheaper. Hasn't been quite as cheap. Probably doesn't help that we don't speak much of the language, so it does make it a bit harder to barter, because some of the things can be barter. And also, if we don't have a lot of connections here, then it makes it harder because you can't be recommended or given a special price because you know someone who knows somebody, and yada yada yada. Now, also another thing to note is, I guess it's going to depend on where you are, but there is definitely a predominant sex industry here. Yeah, so it's here. So older men will come here for Dominican Republic women. Older women will come here for Dominican Republic men. So it does go both ways. So that's something to be aware of. And it'll be more prevalent depending on what area you're in as well. So you may want to pick and choose where you go, if it's something that you're really not wanting to have to face or have to deal with while you're here. On a good note though, they have some really good fruit here. I tried mango sapote, sabadilla, it's got a number of different names, but that was really, really good. But you can get things like the pineapples, the watermelons, the mangoes, the passion fruit. They're really big on the passion fruit here. It's called chinola. They call it chinola. Yeah, there's just so many different fruits. I think they export quite a few bananas as well out of the country. But most of the bananas I've seen are just the very standard sort of ones that you would probably, sort of get in most westernized countries. However, in somewhere like some of the Southeast Asian countries I've been to, you can get different types of bananas, which makes your banana experience, banana eating experience a bit more exciting. Can I say that? Anyway, you can take that in whatever context that you want. And the fruit's reasonably cheap, especially compared to what I would pay for back home in New Zealand. So tropical fruit's great. If you're trying to buy things, I guess, like apples and grapes and fruits that are not tropical, then it's probably going to be a bit more expensive. You probably have to go to the supermarket to buy those. And to be honest, I would much rather eat tropical fruit that's locally grown than trying to buy an apple when I know I can just go to New Zealand and get a really good apple, instead of trying to pay heaps for an apple in a country that doesn't really grow apples. So anyway, moving on. Next one, their relationship with Haiti is very... I just wouldn't mention the country if I was you while you're here. It's probably best not to. They've just got a bit of a history where they're guess you could say, don't think so highly of each other. Another thing, so obviously the sanitation of the water here is, you wouldn't be able to drink it straight from the tap. You need to purchase, I guess, special treated water. I'm unsure whether you can even boil it and would still be safe to drink, but that's something that you might want to look into if you want to take it that far. However, also the supply of water can be, even just for things like your shower and washing your dishes and stuff, can sometimes, the supply of water cannot always, it's not always like frequent. Sometimes there could be patches where water's not working, there's something wrong with the supply, all that sort of stuff. Now, electricity is another one that can be quite infrequent with its supply as well. In the area that we're staying in Las Terrenas, and electricity was only introduced in the area about 15 years ago, so it's still a reasonably new thing to this area. I guess a lot of people that come here, when they had, if you had money, you possibly would have had things like solar power and all that sort of stuff, and if you were going to live here long term, maybe that's something that you might want to look at getting, as if you want a more frequent supply of power for when it cuts out. But it's not too much of a big deal, and I guess the pace of life is a little bit different, and there's not that sort of expectation that everything has to be done like instant. So like if you were running a business here and, I don't know, say your power went out and so your internet was out for an hour, it's, people are not going to be as like annoyed about it. And I guess a lot of people have things like backup generators and that, so they can continue doing that sort of stuff. Oh yes, and hurricanes, they do occur. So tropical cyclones, while I am recording this, we are in a wet season in the northern part of the country. Well, actually no, I think wet season from November to January in the northern part of the country. But anyway, the cyclones tend to happen between August and October, and that is the time that we're staying. We're going from staying September to October. So when the day we were supposed to arrive was a day that a hurricane was moving through, so we ended up coming actually the next day, just because the flight had been cancelled till the next day. I don't really want to fly in a hurricane. I don't think anybody else really wants to fly in a hurricane, so it was a pretty good decision to not fly, I guess. At the sports here, they are really into baseball, and their music is what is it? I think it says something like merengue and bachata. Yeah, I think it's the sort of music that's quite popular here. It's their own sort of style, the merengue one. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's actually quite a fast-paced music. It's like 120 to 160 beats per minute, and so my favourite genre sort of sits in the 140 beats per minute up. So maybe there's something I could get into. It's sort of fast-paced. It's quite nice. Although I still love, a bit of our old slow dubstep and all that sort of stuff. It's a bit more, actually a lot more slower than 140 beats. Anyway, yes, so corruption is a thing that happens here. It's definitely, you possibly could get pulled over by the police and be made to pay them money so that they don't put you in jail. So yeah, it does happen, and I would assume that it happens on various levels, various activities. If you've got money, you could probably make things happen a bit faster. You could probably make things happen that others possibly couldn't. It's not something I'm for, obviously, and it's not something that I'm that familiar about because I'm never really been brought up around that sort of stuff. Another thing is it can be hard for things to get done around here. Especially when it comes to public services. Like I know of some people that were telling me the other day, they went to get their car registration changed. So they got a family friend of theirs is a lawyer in Samana, and they did up the paperwork. So they drove to Santo Domingo to get it's just they sold a car. So they're just going to basically change the ownership, and they wouldn't accept it because the lawyer wasn't from Santo Domingo. So they had to go all the way back to Samana and get it sorted. And, you know, you could go to their office one day and they would say yes, and go to office another day and say no, or go to their office, you know, on that day and then go to another office 2 kilometres down the road and they might say yes. So you just don't know. It's not very set in stone. It's really it's not as complicated, but it's not very like, this is the procedure that you follow. Which is, I guess, a downside to getting things done. I'd imagine starting up a business or something like that could take quite a while. Exports here, I'd say a lot of medical instruments, I think cotton fabrics, cigars is another one, and plastics. As a thing, those are like the main sort of exports that they send out of the country. Used to be a lot based on sugar, cocoa, and what's the other one? Oh, and coffee. They still do those things. Sugar has always been, ever since they started growing it here, for rum, mostly. That's why they go to sugar. They're really big on drinking rum. I don't drink alcohol, so it's not my thing, but if you're drinking rum, I guess coming to the Caribbean, especially the Dominican Republic, probably wouldn't be too bad of a place if you wanted to broaden your palette of rum selection, if that seemed nothing. Now with that those sort of food production, especially with the coffee, rice, sugarcane and tomatoes, there has been some exposure of possible child labour within the country, so that is something that you might want to be aware of when you're here, or if you're buying any of those sort of products that come from here. I want to, I guess, if you want to be more of a conscious consumer, I want to do some research on whereabouts those things are coming from, and whether they've been, certified that they don't use child labour, because definitely there is a number of kids that don't go to school who are, probably quite young. It's not like they're 16, it's more like, they might be 10 years old. So it's, I can see where it possibly happens. It's a complicated issue, obviously. It's not like one solution is going to solve one thing is going to solve the whole issue. It's a lot more complex than that. But moving on. So their currency is a peso, and if you work in US dollars, we don't, so sometimes they actually give you the cost in US dollars, and to us it's like that's not what we use. We have different currency that we're working with in our brain. But anyway, so about, I think, it's like $1 US, I think, is around about 45 pesos. If you're working in a New Zealand currency, $1 New Zealand dollar is like 33 pesos or something like that. So yeah, that's what the currency sort of works in. So I guess an example, the thing is, I'm worried about giving you an example of something and maybe I'm just paying too much for it, so I don't know. So if we were to buy, we get these massive jugs of water for our kitchen, and we buy a massive one of those, and it's like 50 pesos, excuse me, for one of those. Like you could probably get a really big mango for like 50 pesos. So I guess that gives you a rough estimation. If you can speak Spanish, if you know someone that knows someone that knows someone, whatever, you might be able to get things a whole lot cheaper. Anyway, and the population here is about 10 million people, roughly. It's definitely over 10 million people. And a lot of the population is made up of, I guess, what statistical people would call racially mixed. I don't really know if that is a very correct term to use, but it's a mixture of a lot of races. Obviously, with the there was the First Nations people, and then after, there was then colonisation. The colonisation was mostly Spanish, and there was also some French colonisation. And of course, around about that time, that was when a lot of European influenced countries had a lot of slaves, so they also brought a lot of slaves over here. So there's a lot of African descent here as well. So there's a mixture of that. I think their religion is like 95% Christian, so it's mostly Christian. On a side note, there does seem to be a little bit of, think it's like 3% of them are 7-day Adventists, so there could be some vegetarian influence here. I don't know. I can't really see it. I mean, it'd be nice, but yeah, I have heard that 7-day Adventists, just like a type of Christianity, can be a little bit more open to vegetarianism and if veganism, which is great. And the other thing to note is that crime is obviously everywhere in the world, and I think predominantly with, like, you know, people are murdered. I don't mean to downplay that. It's a terrible thing. People shouldn't even be murdered. But yes, I think a lot of the crime probably stems from a lot of drugs that are passing through from Colombia through to Europe, United States and Canada. So a lot of them come through, I think, possibly through boats, especially in Santo Domingo. You're always getting people offering, or maybe just because we're a bit younger, but they're always offering to sell us drugs. And I think they get a lot of them from Santo Domingo. So there's a lot of that passing through the country. And obviously with that also means that there's money going through, so money laundering does happen, of course. Gosh, I say that with so lightly. Yeah, so money laundering is happening with a lot of the Colombian drug cartels and things like that as well, so that's coming through. But yeah, so that is basically my things you should know about Dominican Republic. Some of them may be of more use than others, some may be just of particular interest of yours, whatever. So yeah, so I guess, you know, I'd recommend the place for some people, wouldn't recommend the place for others. Really just depends. Go and have a look around. If you still want to experience the Caribbean, maybe there's another country for you that you would rather visit, and that's fine. It's not the most expensive country to visit in the Caribbean. There's definitely a lot more expensive countries to visit, but there could be maybe a couple of cheaper ones. There was we were thinking of going to some, but some of them have been quite badly affected with the hurricane, and obviously places like Haiti's probably cheaper. Sometimes though, when you're looking at going to cheaper places, you might have to sacrifice certain things because they might not have as much of an establishment, you know, or support for tourists, or, you know, things like that. But that's just depends on what travel you're into, and I guess it, you know, depends what you're into, and, you know, what sort of experience do you want out of your travels. I guess that's it. I will see you in the next video, and I hope I've done something that makes you happy today. See ya.